I've lost my son. Liam's lost his brother. And before that happened, we had several years of dealing with Noah having some pretty severe drug problems, drug issues, and the likes of which you, when I think about you guys bailing on me and trying to blame any of it to do on drugs, it's just a ridiculous joke. And he spent that 6 months poisoning everybody and fixing it so that he could abandon me. You went along with that. The reason you did that is because he led you to believe that that you couldn't trust me. He led you to fear some kind of exposure. Is because you were so disloyal. You were projecting onto me. But I was never disloyal. I never talked to anybody about anything. I never said a bad word about you to anybody ever. Even still, here's the thing. It's been 15 years. I have kept quiet this whole entire time. And the reason that I did that is because I had 2 children that needed a family. I had 2 children that desperately needed a family. And if there was any chance that they could have a family, I wasn't going to screw it up by causing any conflicts, by doing anything. And so you've told yourselves all these stories about me, and which I can't even imagine wanting to make yourself believe that your daughter is this terrible, bad person, but you did. And you missed out on 15 years that you could have had with me and my kids, and who really paid the price for that were the kids. And not just my kids, but all the kids, are completely different people than Noah and Liam. I mean, they have nothing in common. And the difference is that they have because I was the scapegoated one. And so Noah and Liam were the ones who had to go to every event with their mother excluded, who had to be the ones who got to hear about all the gossip about their mom, things that they knew weren't true for 15 years. And I believe, absolutely believe, that if Noah had been born to 2 loving parents and had a loving extended family that rallied around him and supported him, that he'd be alive right now. I absolutely do. So all of us are responsible for Noah being gone. I refused to believe that you didn't love us for way too long. I refused to believe that you didn't love us until you had proven it over and over and over again, and until we were so damaged, until so much had happened. There's no way that I ever would have believed the things that have happened if they hadn't actually happened. I never in a million years would have believed that my parents and my brother would have done the things to me that you guys have done. And I know that you think that you are there for my kids because you're very disloyal. Because normal people don't want a family that excludes their mother. And you would know that. See, if you were healthier, if you understood love and you understand family and loyalty and all of that, and if you were ever able to put the kids' needs before your own, you would have known that they needed their mother. They loved their mother. And they didn't want a family that excluded their mother. Their family began and ended with their mother. The reason that he targeted me, the reason that he focused on me, was because he saw right away that you would betray me. He saw right away that he could get you to turn on me. and he could use you to help him hurt me. He was a diagnosed sociopath. But when we were in counseling together, he'd lined up a counselor. He'd interviewed a counselor, and he'd found a counselor. And the whole point of it was he was trying to get evidence against me to use in court. I didn't know that at the time. At the time, I thought we were trying to save our marriage. So he took me to this counselor. And for 6 months, this was between 2002 and 2003. And for 6 months, we went to these sessions every Wednesday, even after we were separated. And he was very candid in these sessions, very forthcoming. And I'm sure it was because he thought that I was the designated patient, so he didn't think he was being scrutinized. So when 6 months had passed, the therapist said, well, I've got my report for you. And I was like, a report? Why do you need a report? It was, oh, they asked me to write up a report, so I've got it for you. And I haven't spoken about this to anybody ever. In all this time, I have never said a word about any of this to anybody ever, because I wanted to give my kids the best chances of them having any kind of peace and chaos-free childhood that I could. And it was a mistake. I wasted 15 years, and all you guys did was get sicker and sicker, and all it did was make my kids feel invalidated. It was like their childhood and their truth of their life never even happened. And your text messages and your invitation to birthday is just more of what I'm talking about. Because if you saw this whole thing the way that Liam sees it, you would understand how ridiculous that sounds to him. But anyway, back to this thing. So the therapist said flat out, you are a sociopath. To me, you have a death wish. And then he gave us this report. I have the report still. He gave us this report, and it said, antisocial personality disorder, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know what it meant at the time, and I was still trying to plan to, save our marriage. So I just didn't even, I never took it to court. I never told anybody about it, never. Later, when I discovered all these forgeries and all this stuff that he was doing with our office and all our business, all our paperwork, and I took all this evidence back to my apartment. He used that little piece of information to get me arrested so that he could go into my apartment and get all the evidence against himself. There was no evidence ever gotten about me against me. All the evidence that he took was what I had against him. And so that's what the whole arrest was about, was so that he could go into my apartment and get that. And there's a million stories like this that you don't know. And the reason you don't know them is because you didn't want to know them, because you were fixed on a story that you wanted to tell. And I don't know why you would want to betray me. It really makes no sense to me at all why you would want to betray me. But I can't think like you. It was all about him and what he wanted and he needed, and all the focus was on his needs. That was perfectly normal to me. I wasn't supposed to have needs, and that was completely how I was raised. And so that felt very familiar. And believe me, it has taken me years to figure this out. I knew when all this blew up 15 years ago, I didn't have a clue about any of this. It has taken me years of research. I don't expect you to take it. I don't expect you to listen to it. I don't expect you to do anything. But I'm going to say it, because it's not going to do you any good for me to pretend that what you have done is a perfectly normal and healthy thing to do, or a right thing to do. There's a lot of things you've done that are wrong, and you know it. You know that it's wrong. You know that you blew it. You know that you had a wonderful daughter. You had a wonderful daughter who needed you, who loved you. So when you text message Liam and ask him to come over to celebrate my brother's birthday, and he knows that his brother won't have another birthday, he knows that my brother and my mother and father have spent 15 birthdays not even wishing me a happy birthday. By choice. By choice. You know how much Liam and I would give to have Noah back? We would give anything to have Noah back. And we have been through so much more. Your mother, if it wasn't for her, no one would have unconditionally loved me. you know? So I don't know what happened to you, because she was the most caring and loving person that I had in my childhood. And my other grandparents, I mean, obviously, Grandma, seriously, she had some serious abuse that had followed her to her grave that she was never able to talk about. But, you know, I think that one thing I think is really, really terribly sad is that, you know, she had wanted a daughter so bad, and then she wanted a granddaughter so bad, and she got me. And she spent my entire life talking about passing along her things to me and having me keep them for her. You know, wanting to imagine me with them. And you kept them. You kept her jewelry. And that just seems so petty and so wrong. I mean, like, some of the things that you guys have done have just been, I just never would have imagined you doing it. I just never would have imagined it. So, you know, here's the other thing is you underestimated my love for you. And you underestimated my loyalty to you. And you had such fears and such paranoia, because I see now, because you were capable of it. You projected onto me what you were capable of. So you were very disloyal, and you saw me in like a really negative light and all that. And so you projected all that onto me. But I never did that to you. I was always very loyal, and I saw you guys as so much better than you turned out to be in so many ways. I really thought that I had come from, you know, really good, honest, loving people, and I didn't. And the truth is that, you know, I don't know whatever story you think I was going to tell, or whatever fear you have about my childhood. Childhood is irrelevant at this point. What this is about is what's happened in the last 15 years. You know? And what's happened in the last 15 years is pretty outrageous. It cost me my son. So not only did you destroy your entire family, and you lost a really great daughter, and I lost all of my family, but I lost my son. And that's a tragedy. I think that they would ever want to betray me. They were little kids, and they had been lied about, their mothers being talked about. They also saw the whole thing. They saw how their father lived and how their mother lived, and they saw the lies. Okay? They knew who loved them unconditionally and who didn't. They knew what was family. They knew what love was. And, you know, my son, Noah, suffered. He suffered a lot because he understood love, and he understood that his family was unloving, that his family didn't put him first, that his family didn't put him and his brother first. And all the kids in the family suffered. They don't know what they lost. What they lost was a chance to have models of compassion. They lost the chance to, what they saw was, they saw a petty, materialistic, superficial family. And they saw a lot of pettiness. And I know they saw it because every time Liam or Noah was over with any of you, they would come home with these stories. They're just here, and they seem like really sweet kids, but I can tell you something. I looked over at Liam, and I knew that he felt very alone in their presence, because they're not alike. There's nothing in common about them anymore at all. My kids are really different, because they were traumatized. They were traumatized, and they were abused. Our normal kids, they're normal kids who had, you know, who were protected, who were able to wake up in the morning feeling like the world was safe and they could count on things, and life was basically good. My kids, no. My kids were neglected, stuck in the middle of chaos forever. They kept chaos going. And all of you kept chaos going. All of you did. And none of you ever once thought what was best for the kids. Let's put the kids' needs first. None of you ever did that. That's all I ever wanted. If that had happened, everything would have been completely different. So, what's the point of this? What's the point of this message here? The point of the message here is that You know, you wrote me this letter. You wrote me one sentence about crying about, I'm crying with you about the loss of our precious Noah. And what I think is, you're not with me by your choice. You haven't been with me in 15 years. And our precious Noah was only 20 years old. You weren't with me. And you have no idea. You have no idea what I'm going through. I wish you did. God, I have needed a mother and a father and a brother. I have needed you so much. My kids needed you so much. We loved you so much. This sacrifice that you made to sacrifice your family, sacrifice me and Noah and Liam, that was worth it to you. That was less frightening to you than saying to me, or to yourself even, maybe we got it wrong. Maybe we made a mistake. You did get it wrong. You did make a mistake. I forgave you long ago. I forgave you a long time ago, because I know, I have no doubt. Believe this. I know you did not set out to hurt me. I know that you never set out to hurt me. You never said, let's have this kid and let's just screw her up. I know you never intended on that. You're a different person, a sociopath, and he did target me. He did target me, and he targeted all of you too. And he used you. He used us all. There's a lot of things that I am grateful for. I mean, because I had the parents that I did, I became the woman that I am. And I am really proud of this person that I am. And Noah, as hard as it is, as much as I miss him and as much as Liam misses him, I think that he did what he was supposed to do here. You know, I don't know that he was supposed to live to be an old man. I believe that I had a soul contract with him, that he was going to be my child, that I was the one that was capable of being his mother, and that I was strong enough to endure it. You couldn't have. You never could have raised Noah. Never, ever, ever. You couldn't even handle me. I come here and I'm making this video with nothing but love in my heart. I mean, it's loving, it's forgiveness, it's all of that. There was no point in my telling you what you wanted to hear. I mean, you guys do enough of that yourselves. You guys do enough of that amongst yourselves. And all you have to do is look at, I've watched over the course of years, it's been 10 years since there's been any interaction with me, and more angry than he was the time before, and of course, you have to look at it now. It's like, he's divorced, he's getting DUIs. I mean, it's like all these things that were all these big reasons why everyone had to just abandon me. Life happens. This is the thing that was so shocking. Back when all that was happening, I thought, life happens. When this is just my moment to need you guys. Eventually, you're going to need me. Eventually, things are going to happen to you. But for whatever reason, you just couldn't. You didn't have that kind of vision. You were just told you something that was triggering to you, and you ran with it, and you believed him, and now you can't self-correct it because you can't admit that you were wrong. And somehow admitting that you were wrong is a worse price to pay to you than losing your family. I'll never understand that. I will never understand that. But what you got wrong about me was I was completely fine with being wrong. That was how we ended up in this problem in the first place, is that you blame me and I blame myself. So I was busy jumping through hoops, trying to go to treatment, trying to do all these different things, trying to satisfy everybody, when you were ever going to be satisfied. So I was fine with being wrong. I just wanted you to love me. And and you just needed to be right. But yeah, I don't harbor any resentments at all. I've forgiven you, except how much I loved you, to not know how much I loved you. And life, I don't know who, I all these questions about, like, you have this fear of exposure. It's like, exposure to who? It's like, you didn't ever stand to be as important to anybody as you were to me, or to Liam and Noah. But I don't, it's not rational. It's not rational. And you have to, hopefully you see that. I don't know. But there's nothing rational about it. I mean, I could tell it from the moment I moved up here that you wished I hadn't come back. I don't know. I can't imagine being like that. I can't imagine how it is that you ended up with children around you when you didn't even want them, and I ended up losing my son. Those kinds of things, those aren't questions for us to ask. That's higher power stuff. But anyway, I don't have any resentments towards you, and I don't even expect that you're still watching this video, quite honestly. But if you are, do know that I loved you. I never talked badly about you to anybody. I never did any of the things that you were afraid I was going to do. I never did anything. And I was always had an open door invitation to you to come back and talk about whatever happened. And I always hoped that you would. And I'm sorry that you didn't. And I'm sorry that you didn't get to be the grandparents that I really believed you were going to be. I'm sorry that my son died without any happy family memories. He doesn't have a single memory of you loving